Hi, everybody. This is Thought by Thought Healing, and I am Jen Johnson, and that is
Jen Loeffler.
And we are here today because we just want to share with you guys some conversations that her and I have been having via text around flare-ups and how to work through them. On this channel, I talk about everything related to chronic pain, chronic symptoms, and the mind-body connection, which is also called TMS or neuroplastic pain. And Jen and I have both healed from really crazy stories of pain and how it stole our lives from us. And both of us also have really just felt God's presence in that healing journey. And so we share this passion. And so we get on here every once in a while and talk about this. I think this is our fourth time together, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do this. Let's just start kind of like a little bit interview style. Like, can you just tell me, even though I already know about it, just a little bit about the last couple weeks and flare up?
Yes. Well, let's just say that flare-ups are no fun. Um, I had a situation where I was actually having symptoms that I've never even had before, and then realized that those were mind-body symptoms and was able to work through that. But to begin with, it just really knocks you down when you have a flare-up, and it is something you hear about in other recovery stories, that they talk about the fact that it's not a straight line, that it's definitely, some ups and downs. But the neat thing was that I knew what was going on. I could partner with my body, and then I was able to get out of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for you, it was a pretty short flare up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just how 3 days? What was it?
3, 4 days.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's something I want listeners to know, first of all, is flare-ups happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they just do. And I remember I was listening to so many podcasts while I was healing, and remember realizing, oh, this is going to happen to me. And so I started, and I think for me, an important part of healing was actually visualizing and knowing I was going to have flare-ups. And
Mm.
so I actually started like preparing myself to kind of not to react, not to freak out when I did have those flare-ups. And sure enough, I did. So I remember
That's interesting.
yeah.
Huh.
Which part of that is interesting to you?
Well, just the idea of preparing ahead of time, that's not something I thought of. I like that.
Yeah, I literally remember, and I was not in a flare-up at this time. Um, I had healed, and I just stopped and really quickly visualized having some of the same pain that I had had,
Mm-hmm.
and yet, but in my visualization, which lasted about 5 seconds. I'm not big on like long visualizations. I just do quick ones. So I just quickly visualized going through the pain, but feeling emotionally safe and feeling I
Mm.
know that this thing will pass. That was the main
Yes.
thing. I know that this will pass.
Yes.
Because that's the thing that holds us back, right? Is like this, is this
The
ever going to end?
fear that this is never going to end, or here I am back again. All this work that I've done is for nothing.
Yeah.
Not true.
Right. It's not true. Was that part of your dialogue when you and first of all, like how long did it take you to realize these new symptoms are TMS?
It took me a couple days, honestly.
Mhm.
I had always had muscle pain. That's been the chronic pain that I've mostly dealt with. I've dealt with some headaches, but the main thing is muscle pain, and I wasn't having that. I was having gut wrenching type of pain, and
Yeah.
I have a whole new understanding of that phrase now because that's what it felt like.
Gut wrenching. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like, okay, so once I was able to rule out food poisoning and, because nobody else in my family, we'd all eaten the same thing and nobody else was feeling the way I was. That was a real clue to me that maybe this is something else. I didn't have a fever. I went through, the typical things that you think through as far as, is this a structural type of thing? And then I kind of just had this voice in the back of my head that said, when did this start and what was going on? And I realized, well, I just had a really, really heavy situation in my family that it's not something that I can change. It's not something that I have any control over. And that's when I started realizing, okay, I think this is a mind body type of symptom.
Yeah. So I want to go through kind of these 2 points, two suggestions for people who are dealing with flare-ups. But I just want to ask you, so what did that look like for you then? Once you realized this is mind body, this is TMS, this is neuroplastic. What were the steps you took?
So, a couple things. I think I mentioned that I partnered with my body. And what I mean by that
Mm.
is that I realized my body might be trying to tell me something. And that was that time of reflection of like, what happened in the last couple days that has changed or, feels overwhelming, feels like it's not something that I can control over. And once I did that, then um, I gave it to the Lord. That was I would suggest that always, always, when you realize you're having symptoms, just give it to the Lord. Just, okay, Lord, I give this to you. I'm not sure what to do, but I give it to you. And after that, then I reached out to a couple friends that you're one of them, and another friend that I have that understand the mind body connection.
Yeah.
Just and it wasn't even like help. What do I? Well, I think I did say help. What do I do?
You did.
I did in the in the topic, um, but it's like I knew what to do, but I just wanted support in doing
Mm.
doing something that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I think that in this situation, I don't think that going to a doctor would have really been helpful. Um, it wasn't. It's not a structural type of thing that I was dealing with. So, yeah, I really wanted somebody to encourage me in the mind body method, um, what to do.
Yeah. There's so many nuggets in there that I just want to expand on. First of all, you said something about it feeling overwhelming. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that is interesting because we know that the brain catastrophizes
Mhm.
and we know that the brain amplifies and creates pain, amplifies and creates. Sometimes our symptoms feel so big that when we go into a flare up, we think, what in my life could possibly be causing this big of a flare up?
Mhm.
And so for me, oftentimes it's something really little. And I know in your situation it's not something really little, but it's not all. My point is, it's not always proportional.
Right.
Sometimes we have to
Right.
spend, just a minute of like, what is what is new in my life? What emotion have I, under the surface been facing or not facing? What's a new
Mhm.
situation, a person, emotion? Just what's new
Yeah.
or what's old? What has shown up that we already know is triggering, and maybe it's back again, and the brain is just going to its old ways of
Old
of
patterns.
operating.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, And then also you mentioned this idea of going to friends, and Jen and I talked about this before we started this video, but there's this really interesting um, dichotomy maybe of like when we have a flare up after we've healed, who we ask for help is important.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ask somebody who is structurally minded, which is pretty common in Western medicine, there may be somebody who comes alongside you as a loving friend, but is supporting the structural perspective that sends us into that fear cycle, which then causes more pain. So,
Right.
so making sure, like you did, to be asking for support from friends who understand that pain is most often um, underneath the surface and not a structural thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and then also, I think it's just worth mentioning too, when your symptom first comes on, that we want to freak out. We want to go
Mm-hmm.
into this, what is wrong with me? Maybe I should go to the doctor, like you were saying. And instead, I think that it's really important and powerful to continue um, in an attitude of it's okay. I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
fine. This is just TMS. It is just my brain acting up, and not pushing that snowball down the mountain.
Right.
It gets bigger and bigger and scarier, and then the pain gets bigger and scarier, and before you know it, I mean, I don't know, to finish that analogy, you're buried in the snowball. um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a
I
hot
can picture
mess.
it completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
yeah. So first step, don't overreact, stay
Yeah.
calm. And even actually, let's talk about the pre-step. I really think that preparing yourself for flare-ups I just think it's really powerful. Well, it was for me, I know.
Mm-hmm.
I had a ton of flare-ups before I would call myself healed. Um, and and I remember one of them was like 2 weeks, and it took me quite a while to be able to say, oh, all this is that I'm going into I work at a high school. So I realized that I was going into a classroom where there was somebody that we had differing views on something. And
Mm.
all it was me being afraid to say anything.
Sure.
And it wasn't, I mean, it's very little. It was tiny.
Yeah,
And so
but I totally get it. I totally get that.
yeah, it was just fear ruling, but I didn't realize
Hmm.
it because it was not a big deal. I didn't think about it when I went home, but I think my subconscious was aware of it. And it wasn't
Sure.
until I like literally sat down. And for me also, like you, Jen, it was completely new pain. It was not in any area that I had ever had pain. It was literally in my right hip in this like one spot. I was like, what
Right.
is this? Um, but it was clearly
But it
TMS.
got your attention.
Sure did. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So don't freak out. That's the main thing. Prepare yourself. Don't freak out. Ask
When
for
you
help.
say prepare yourself, it gave me the idea of even like writing out like a little pep talk.
Yep.
Maybe you just pull that out when you're having a flare up, pull that out. And in that pep talk, it talks about the fact that you don't need to be afraid. This is a temporary thing.
Yeah.
Um, you know, this is
It's
potential
going to end.
body is trying to give me a clue that I need to look into something. And I can be thankful for that. I can be thankful for the way that God's made my body to be
Yeah.
able to communicate in that way.
And that goes back to what you were saying about partnering with the body, which actually I 100% love. And little tangent here, I just want to say the tools only work if you use them. And
Mm,
the mind body community has a lot of fantastic tools. And one of them is this idea of partnering. I haven't heard it actually phrased that way, but
yeah, I
befriending
haven't
your
either,
body.
but it just makes sense to me.
Yeah. And I hear a lot of people say things like, thank your body for the work that it's doing, thank it for the message. And I did that a lot when I was healing. And these tools, they work, But
Mhm.
I think sometimes we think, well, that's just so cheesy. I'm never going to stand in front of the mirror and say, thank you, body, for the work you're doing.
It
And
does
yet,
sound kind of weird. I mean, we have to admit it sounds weird.
yeah, and yet it's effective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that. Yes, like thank and acknowledge the ways that your body is working for you, the way that God created it, instead of coming against it. Like,
Yeah, so I think it's easier for me to say thank you, Lord, for the way you made
mm-hmm.
my body than to thank my body itself. It's easier.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I love that. Um, yeah, so okay, so in summary, what have we said? Prep for it, and I love your idea of writing a note. I wrote myself essays um, in planning for different scenarios that I knew were triggers, different subjects. So I'd write like a really sloppy, terrible essay, and it would be like examples of 3 ways that I knew I would be triggered in a certain area, and I would prep myself
Mm,
and prepare and visualize. Okay, this bad thing is going to happen, but I'm going to respond in a different way. Uh,
hmm.
and that's just another example of how you could do that. Write yourself a note. You will have a flare up,
Right.
and this is how you're going to respond.
This is your pep talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So pep talk. Um, don't freak out. Remember, it's TMS, whether it's your same old symptom or a new one. I
And
mean,
and as you hear recovery stories, a lot of people talk about the fact that there are new symptoms that can pop up.
yeah.
Um, I think it's even called extinction burst or something. I don't know. That was a term that I heard in Alan Gordon's work.
Yeah. And I heard that early on too, that you're going to have different symptoms. And I feel like that was really helpful for me because every single time I get a symptom now, I literally just say, this is just TMS. And I move past it, and it never lasts because it is
Mm,
TMS and it's just showing up in really weird ways. And I mean, most of my clients within the first 2 weeks of working with me have a new symptom, and
yeah,
so we're working with that new symptom that they've never had before.
right.
It's very rarely structural. It's almost always.
And I really like though, I like the way he calls it an extinction burst because what that says is that something is changing
Mm,
body and this this mode that it's been in is extinct. You know, it's going extinct, but it's still, it's still trying to get my attention in some way. So I like that extinction.
right, which leads to your other point, or what you did, which is taking the underlying real instigator of the symptom to God.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
how, okay, so this opens a whole can of worms of writing, but tell us what that looked like for you.
Well, I mean, was the simple just, okay, Lord, what do I do with this? I think this is a mind body thing. So that to me says that my body's trying to tell me something. Uh,
Hmm.
but then also, as you mentioned, it took some time to do some expressive writing. I think you call it psalm it out. I've heard other people say heart journal, journal speak, all the same thing. The whole point is that you are writing out not what happened necessarily. I mean, you can, but really more about how you feel about what's happening.
Yeah.
You do that, I think your body or your mind has to slow down enough to be able to write in sentences. And I think in that way you're able to uncover things that you maybe didn't even realize were affecting you.
Yeah. Yeah, for me sometimes and for those of you who don't like journaling, this could be helpful. It sometimes it's helpful for me to write it in list form. Just like a
Yeah.
list of like, okay, so what's new in my life? What am I dealing with that I haven't dealt with before? Um, and just start just a bullet list.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes can narrow it down to, oh, actually, this is the thing that it's about. And you're
Mm-hmm.
right. We don't have to, it's a waste of time to describe everything that happened around that situation.
I mean, that's how I used to journal, right? It was more like
Mhm.
a history. If somebody ever wanted to know about my life, there it is.
Yeah.
But this is a different type of journaling that is really more about getting out, um, you know, the things that are really affecting you. And
Yeah.
I mentioned to you this analogy that I really like about the bucket. This
Yes.
idea that, you know, we have a reservoir inside of us, and that is a beautiful thing. I mean, the Lord gave that to us so that there would be times when we just need to kind of push something aside because it's not an appropriate time to deal with that emotion. You know, maybe
Yes.
emotional situation or what have you. Um, so it's beautiful that we have this reservoir, but it does get filled up. And I feel like the expressive writing is a way that you can empty out that bucket, you
Yep.
know. Otherwise, it can slosh out and just in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I really like that analogy. And that's when when we haven't worked through those emotions, that's where it ends up coming out as a symptom generally or an outburst of some sort. Um,
Right.
um, yeah, for me, writing is just it helps me just to organize and to be able to identify and the name the thing that I'm being held victim to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the Psalm It Out, my Psalm It Out project is intended to help people to not become victim because I think sometimes we write ourselves into victim mode, and I've talked about this in other podcasts, but this idea of okay, I think that God generally leads us in one of two directions, and one is this sometimes he just sits with us in the mire. It's almost like he gets in the bucket with us. And if we're going to use the bucket analogy, then it kind of spills over, right? Let's talk physics
Mm-hmm.
here. And so
One
so
way to empty it out.
that's one to just get Jesus in there.
Invite God to get in there.
Oh my gosh, we're so cheesy. It's terrible. And I love it. So, yeah, so I think Jesus sometimes like when I get in that space and I sit and I ask him like, God, are you wanting me to just rest in this sorrow?
Mm.
Or are you calling me into action, as in to not be victim to something? He's when I ask it in that way, it's pretty clear which one. Sometimes he'll show me both. Like it's okay to like recognize and sit in the fact that today has been stressful, which for me today has been very stressful. Jen was kind enough to pray with me before getting on this because yeah, it's been tough. And when I got home from my other job today, I had to sit with Jesus and I had to um, allow that emotion to be known by God. And
Mm.
he asked me to just sit in it with him for a little bit. And then he also showed me, but you don't have to be captive to this
Mm.
stressful situation, which we also talked about before this. Um,
Yes.
and so there's this both. He's saying, yeah, this you're in a stressful situation. I'm here with you in it. It's okay to feel that thing. And also, let me show you in what ways you are I am giving you the power to overcome this and move past it and be
Amen.
and be in a stressful situation while having joy
And peace.
and peace in my
Mm.
body.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really powerful for me today, both in what happened and also just talking with you too before this to see how that's all playing out and the ways that God is leading me. Because I know for me that bucket feels really full today. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew my body and my brain knew I wasn't in a flare up, but I knew that I was getting to a point where I needed my body and myself needed to stop and be with the Lord and pay attention to those emotions and not run from them.
Right. Right. So good.
So I
Mm.
just rambled for like 5 minutes.
No, but
Um,
there's so many nuggets in that. So many nuggets.
yeah, I love this mind body concept because it like every time I look at it, it just the the way to get out of pain, it just seems to always lead towards the relationship aspect of Christianity, Jesus,
Mm.
the relationship
Mm-hmm.
part of it.
Mm-hmm. Freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Him. I mean, the gift has always been there, right? As long as you've been a Christian, the gift of freedom, it's always been there. But when we actually get to walk it out, it is such a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay. Do you have anything else to say about flare-ups? Anything else that's coming to mind?
Not about flare-ups. I was thinking about the expressive writing. I don't think I mentioned this, that oftentimes I will just have a box of tissues like right there.
Mm.
And and I just, as I'm writing, I'm crying, you know, or I'm expressing emotion at the same time. And I feel like it's important to not to not stop. Like I'll even write tears in my writing that I'm doing, acknowledging that this is something that's really bringing up some emotion in me, and then allowing myself to have that space to get that emotion out if I need to, and then reminding myself that it's okay. In the middle of that, it's okay. I know that I'm not going to stay, because it can be kind of scary, I think, at first, that it's like, well, I don't want to dive into that. That is way deep and I won't get out of it.
Yeah.
But I've done this enough. I've done the journaling enough to see that I don't stay in it. I'm able to work through things, and I have such a relief afterward, and my body goes back into rest and digest instead of being in that sustained fight or flight position that it typically had been in.
Yeah, I really like that because I know that there are a lot of people that fear the writing because of that or fear the experiencing emotions because there is a common fear that will never come out.
Hmm.
In the same way that we feel about pain, this will never end.
Right.
And so I just want to reiterate what you just said, which is when we journal about it, it does come to an end. Just because you're
Hmm.
acknowledging something does not mean that it has the right to dominate, take over, and imprison you.
Right.
It's an opportunity to be known by God and to let some of that out of that bucket that you're talking about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, any other last words before we say goodnight to everybody?
Just continue to walk in the peace that God has for you, because it can be so much better when we give those symptoms to the Lord, and we walk in this type of the mind body method, understanding how this works together. I just love my life so much more.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Okay, so prepare. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
Write about it. Ask for help from somebody who understands mind body medicine and be known by God. And take a raw, good look at your life to see what is happening underneath it all. So,
Mm, perfect.
okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. I hope that you have a great Saturday. That Saturday is when I'm going to release it. You're probably not watching it on a Saturday, but that's fine. All right. We will see you guys again next time. Bye bye.